What is it that drives you? Does personal wealth matter, or is it success, or is it building something or creating something, or do they all matter?
I think they all matter. It's the freedom to do what you love and what you want to do, and that's usually empowering to actually have that freedom, which obviously comes from financial success. It's the growth, actually. I mean, one of the most things that gives me the most satisfaction is growing my people and my teams, and letting them see what's possible. So in Data Insight, my founding team is still with me. One of them runs Data Insight, one of them runs Generate Zero. In Valocity, many of my people have been with us for many, many years, and they're seeing how we can take NZ tech and transform the world. Like what we're doing in India is making history. And while we're sleeping here, valuers and lenders are clicking in our platform. And that's so phenomenally rewarding. And then the impact that we're making on the end user, that, when they're actually transacting and buying a home for the first time ever, their most important financial decision, we're bringing transparency and democratizing access to data for that important process.
Just for people who aren't familiar, when they hear about data and they hear you talking about data, where is the value in that? When people say, oh, data's the new gold. Is it the new gold for New Zealand? I mean, can you put it in simple terms for people?
Yeah, and I think people say, there's obviously the old adage that data is oil, the new oil. But just like oil, if it's buried under the building and no one can access it, it has no value. So you have to actually get it out, you have to transform it into petrol, and you have to make it accessible. And that is where there is huge opportunity for data. Otherwise, it's so what? And we often come across companies, and even in Valocity, when we go to partner, and they're like, oh no, our data is usually valuable. If you just have data, it only has a certain value. If you then turn it into something that makes it operational and give access to it, then it becomes incredibly more powerful. So for example, Valocity has partnered with different science providers to bring climate data in a module so that the bank can actually have access to that information to make data-driven decisions around risk. And it's incredibly powerful, for example, in flooding, where a chief risk officer said, before, because this area is a flood risk, I might have said no. Now I can see where the house is on the property, the flooding's at the back, it's not going to impact the property.
What about risk? What's your capacity for risk? Do you think there's an entrepreneur that started 3 businesses and gone into India, you maybe have a higher threshold for risk?
I have a very high threshold for risk. And when you think about it, you asked, I bootstrapped the company. So first I quit my very phenomenally well-paying corporate job to start a company when I was the income earner. My husband ran our house and kids. And then, I had to buy all the data, which cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, to build something that no one had ever done before. And then, I continued to reinvest my own mortgage money. So that's definitely huge for us when you're the income earner with 4 kids.
Were there times when you
Might call it crazy rather than risk.
Were there a few times where you thought that you were in trouble, or that or were you always confident that you would get through?
You do have to have a massive self-belief, and I remember when we were building Valocity and we were getting ready to go live with our first ever bank, it was an RFP process, and my board at the time said, well, they're not going to be able to say yes. No one's used this platform and it's business critical, they just can't. And so, what's the plan B? And I was like, well, there isn't a plan B. We just have to make it so much better that they can't say no. And that discipline and that focus forces you to execute. So I believe in strategic innovation. I'm in tech and data, there's so much I can do. With disciplined execution, we have to execute. When you think of what Valocity does, it's business critical. And we're going, it's innovation, it's cloud, it's AI, it's technology, but we can't break anything or our reputation will be gone.
What could we do in New Zealand to encourage more entrepreneurs at a younger age, perhaps build it more into the culture? Is there things that we could do?
I think 100%, there is about celebrating success. We still, people are nervous around celebrating success and it could be seen as materialistic. But why would you not want to be all that you could be? And actually, New Zealand entrepreneurs, companies, when they do sell, they reinvest.